Good morning, good evening, and good day. It's me, it's the Chiang, Chia Ng from Octopus Stretch, and you're listening to the Karn's Mongolian Chop House, another pro wrestling podcast. And with me is my brother from another mother whose father is my mother's brother, Mr. Ben Lee. Today in our Get to Know Us series for this ridiculously long-winded podcast, we are going to list out our 5 favorite and 5 most hated pro wrestling match types or stipulations.
All right, so for me, it was hard to kind of parse these out between hated and loved because there used to be a lot more gimmicks than there are now, or at least it feels that way. But then you also didn't want to get too gimmicky, right? Because then that just, I don't know, like a thing on a pole match, right? It's like, well, yeah, nobody likes those matches because it's not fun. But so with this, I just kind of have to think about broader spectrums, I guess, broader strokes. But my 5th favorite type of match, I'm actually going to say all right. So they turned it into an event. I wasn't a fan of today's event, but the actual Elimination Chamber match itself, I do enjoy. So I would say that's at my number 5. The reason I like it so much, I guess, it's not so much the structure, although the structure is really kind of cool the first time I saw it, and I'm glad they haven't painted it red yet. But the reason I like it is because it kind of was very unique when it was first presented to us back in 2002. And, I think I like the idea of this elimination style where you kind of have the chance where anybody can win. And it used to be where this was actually always for a title of some kind. But then at some point, sometimes they became more stipulation based for the person who is next in line for this. Like a number one contenders type of thing. But I think it's always just interesting to watch because then you also have the structure itself and people being able to do things off of it or around it. But just like with any match gimmick, once a spot has been introduced, you almost feel like, oh, well, we can't do that anymore. Or you always have to find some sort of new creative ways to do it. And it depends on who they get in the match. But then sometimes you actually really do get a lot of good spots. I'm not counting today's event at all by any means, but we've seen a lot of cool things that a lot of the high flyers are able to do, right? Like a Kofi Kingston or a Rey Mysterio or what have you. But then just some of the ways that people are able to kind of put drama into it, even if they're not using the structure itself. But maybe they get injured or they get hurt somehow within the match and they're still able to kind of overcome and persevere in it. I think that was really cool. I saw a clip, I think it was today, and they were talking about, because it was Elimination Chamber and I saw it on social media, but they were referring back to, I think it was the women's tag team title introduction.
Yep.
And they were talking about when Sasha and Bayley won the titles. And Sasha was basically nursing her arm the entire match, and she creatively found a way to get, I think it was Sonya Deville, to tap by locking the bank statement with her leg, right? And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of an interesting thing to do. But anyway, so I picked that one as my 5th favorite because it's something relatively newer, comparatively speaking, to other match types that are probably on my list. Like I said, it's only about 20 years old now, which, it seems like a pretty old thing to be saying, but, going back to the advent of wrestling, it's been around forever. So comparatively speaking, it's not as old as some of the other match types, but I do like it because of the gimmick it is itself, structure, but also the creativity that everybody's able to kind of put together within that structure itself.
All right. Well, now I kind of wish I went first because my number 5 is also the Elimination Chamber.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Where
cool.
Tonight's event excluded, of course.
Sure.
To add on to what you said, I think this is probably Eric Bischoff's kayfabe most greatest contribution to wrestling, more than the
Yeah.
NWO, more than anything he did in WCW.
Sure.
Just this awe-inspiring and intimidating structure. Like when I first saw it, I thought, my goodness, this is like a cage match on steroids, where it also eliminates that annoying way of winning a cage match where you just have to climb out. No, you actually have to win. You actually have to beat your opponent. You can't just escape. But yeah, great match, great moments. Didn't watch the Saudi match. I refuse to watch it now that I saw that it was only 15 minutes long. And, you know, spoilers, Brock Lesnar won it. But yeah, great minds think alike. So
yeah, no, I think you're right on that one.
that great minds think alike. Yes, we are great minds.
Yeah, no, there was something funny I was thinking about when you were saying how it was Eric Bischoff's greatest contribution and all this stuff. I agree. I think it was. You know, I don't really know who came up with it. I honestly don't. But whoever actually came, but he did take the credit. So yeah, that's awesome, man.
All right. So what's your number 4?
Okay, so my number 4 favorite match. I guess I don't know if you can really call it a match type. I guess you can, right? But the reason I say that is because you can win by a multitude of ways. So I can't really decide if it's like kind of cheating because it incorporates so many other elements in there. But I would say it's the Iron Man match, right? And the reason I say it incorporates a lot of things is because like at some point in time you can basically go like hardcore rules, right? Because like if you want to get yourself DQ'd and just like beat the crap out of your opponent and then get easy like pinfalls after that, you can. But then also, you know, you have the submissions, you have the pinfalls, and you know, sometimes these Iron Man matches go all over the place. People are just fighting all over the world, and then they come back and then it's fine. But I like the Iron Man match. They don't use it as much as, you know, some of the other gimmicks, which is great because you really can't have 2 competitors go 60 minutes like regularly because it just wear and tear. And I like it that way because the fewer and farther between you see it, the more value it has, right? And so of course, like you always think about like the Mania match with Brett and Shawn, right? And that 1 hour, you know, marathon that they had where like there was no pinfalls and they had to go to overtime and all that stuff. But then you have some of the ones that are in more recent years that have been really good. And I think it was Angle and Lesnar did one on SmackDown back in the early 2000s, and that was really good. And of course, then there was, you know, Sasha Bailey 2, where they followed up their wonderful Brooklyn match with an Iron Woman match.
Yep.
That one was only 30 minutes, but still a solid match in itself. So I'd say the Iron Man match is my 4th favorite.
Okay. Well, apparently I've either been copying your list or you're copying mine, because mine is number 4 Iron Man match as well.
Oh no.
But caveat.
Okay.
I'm only counting 60-minute matches.
Okay.
I do not count 30 minutes. 30 minutes is not a real Iron Man match for me. Like I've seen regular matches in New Japan that go well beyond 30 minutes on a regular basis. So when someone says, "Oh, it's a 30-minute Iron Man match," and I say, "Please, there's this guy named Kazuchika Okada who's always wrestling 40 minutes a match."
Yeah, well, when they do 30 minutes, all they're really saying is that they want it to be multiple falls. That's all it really is.
Yeah, I think that cheapens it a bit. Like WWE,
it does.
They average maybe 5 minutes a match, maybe 10. So I can see that being an Iron Man to them, but to me, and probably to anyone who watches non-WWE wrestling, 30 minutes is nothing.
Yeah.
Of course, another caveat there, I would probably be dead if I participated in a wrestling match that went longer than 3 minutes.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I don't think I could do that either.
Yeah.
By any man. Yeah.
All right. So just so it doesn't feel like I'm copying you all the time.
Sure. Do you want to go next?
I'm going to do number 3 first.
Okay.
For me, my number 3, Money in the Bank. Not just ladder matches. I want Money in the Bank.
Okay.
5 to 6 people just trying to climb up a ladder to grab just a contract to guarantee that they get a future championship match whenever they want.
Mm-hmm.
That was like one of the best things like I've never even considered it as a possibility. Like, you have the Royal Rumble, they guarantee you the match at WrestleMania. Money in the Bank, the way that Edge first won it,
Mm-hmm.
and then held on to that thing
Mm-hmm.
for almost an entire year, and then he just snuck in and won the title after
Mm-hmm.
like, I think it was like John Cena got totally thrashed and he somehow pulled out a victory, and here comes
Mm-hmm.
Edge, that was ultimate opportunist,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just destroying him. Oh my goodness, the match was great, the matches are great, even the pre-recorded ones that they did at the studio,
Mm-hmm.
that was entertaining. And then I just love that match. Like, I have yet to see a bad one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, except the one where Jack Swagger won. But I digress.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you in that. I think the Money in the Bank ladder match is a great concept. Of course, like you talk about like whether it's kayfabe or whatever. Didn't they say like Chris Jericho was the introducer of that one? Like it was his idea?
I think maybe. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
All I remember was Edge winning it.
I think it was like, and I think Jericho has said this before in one of his podcasts. He said like, it was Mania 21. He didn't really have a match, and so he came up with this idea of doing a ladder match where the winner gets a title shot, right? Because why not? You have all these people who are not really in any active storyline. Just put them all together in a match and see what happens. And I think it was great because you had 6 people who viably could be considered like an actual championship contender in the match. I think it's interesting because like the first few years, and I think even to this day, you still kind of get to the like gimmickiness of it because there's always somebody who always has to have a spot, right? Yep. Like a big spot, right? Like the first one I can think of, that same one that Edge won, was the Shelton Benjamin like running up the ladder thing, yep. Right? That, which I had never seen that before, and I was like, oh my god, what the hell did I just see, right? Like that a human can do that. And then after that, like Shelton became almost a staple of those matches until he left the company, and then after that, it became like a John Morrison or a Kofi Kingston or an Evan Bourne, somebody who can do something, right? That
yep. Someone who don't think is going to win, but is just there to do one or two incredible spots that everyone's going to talk about.
Right, and that's basically what it was for. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised it made a favorites list. It's definitely up there, and I think it's interesting you specified it to be the Money in the Bank rather than just a general ladder match.
Yeah, I enjoy general ladder matches. It's just Money in the Bank to me just took it one level higher.
Sure.
Because then you have like 6 men just doing all sorts of stuff instead of just 2 guys just eventually slowly crawling up a ladder. But
Sure. Yeah, I
and
could get that.
The drama of one guy's climbing, 5 possible people could just knock him off the ladder.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
All right, so what's your number 3?
Well, my number 3, number 2, I kind of was thinking about and whether or not I wanted to flip flop them or how close they were. But it's interesting because this match type was also on my list. It wasn't Money in the Bank, but it's a ladder match, just a general ladder match. Yeah, so that I would probably say is my number 3. And basically for everything you said, granted, the ladder match itself, just standard ladder match can be 2 participants, could be triple threat or whatever. But the reason I loved it so much, and I know a lot of people give credit to the Shawn Razor series back in the day, and that's good. It was very good. But the reason I came to really love it was because of the Hardys versus Edge and Christian back in No Mercy, I think 99.
Yep.
That's the one that really I was like, oh man, like this is so cool. And then to see them like evolve that into like TLCs, turning it into like Money in the Bank and every other type of like ladder incorporated match. I think you have to give props to where it started, and it was just ladder match itself.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm totally on board with you on the Razor and Sean series where you've never seen it before. I understand it did exist pre Razor and Sean, but they were the ones that had a match that was memorable to me the first time at WrestleMania. I think it was WrestleMania 10 or 11. I can't remember the exact number, but then they had an even better one the following SummerSlam.
Yep.
It was just great.
It was Mania 10. I remember that because I remember seeing the little X in the background. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Nice. All right. Very good.
So, that wasn't technically copying.
No, but it's very, very close.
Very close.
No, my guess is our number 2s are going to be different, though. I have a feeling it's going to be.
Fingers crossed. All right. So my number 2, which now I think could have been number 3 just for the fun of it, triple threat match.
Okay.
There's something about a triple threat match in my eye that just helps add drama in the fact that the champion doesn't have to be pinned, where you can have that undefeatable champion lose his belt because one of his opponents got pinned. And there's just been multiple examples that I've seen where a regular championship match actually gets saved because it became a triple threat. The earliest, the most recent one I can think of is Charlotte versus Ronda, Rousey versus Becky Lynch. The original, what was it, like Charlotte versus Ronda?
Yep, which is what they're going to do this year anyway.
Absolutely hated that idea. And then they added Becky. And I just thought, oh, now it's must watch. And
well, I mean, go ahead.
No, it was great.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right. I mean, they've done that quite often, actually, because you even think back to, I want to say it was Mania 30, right? And I think we talked about this once before with our favorite wrestlers, but Bryan Danielson, right? He got himself into the main picture because people wanted him in there, right? So what should have been, Orton versus Batista became Orton, Batista, and Bryan, which made it that much better.
And on top of that, he had to earn it the same night by defeating Triple H.
Right.
Yes. And like those kind of matches, I love when two guys fight, but when there's a third person, it kind of improves the pacing of the match where you can have 2 of the 3 guys fighting while one guy rests outside and they just keep switching the third guy. And it just like, it never feels like it stops. They just keep going. And I enjoy that.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick.
Right.
Now, I have to ask you, like, is your affinity for triple threats also back to when we were playing like wrestling video games back in the day, and you play a triple threat and you wait until like a guy like beat up the other guy and you threw like one guy outside and so he could just pin the guy who was like deeper in the ring?
Yes, that is my no mercy strategy.
Yeah. All right, so mine number 2, and it's not I mean, I feel like we're kind of on the same wavelength, but we're not exactly matching like we did with 5 and 4 here. But my number 2 is just your standard singles match. And I know you talked about, yours was kind of like, well, singles matches can kind of be, blah, but when you add a third participant, it can be great. But I also think that there are some singles matches, just one-on-one straight up, that can be amazing, right? But it needs to have just the regular like stipulations, nothing like extra, nothing fancy about it, just like straight up one-on-one to see who the better participant is, right? And I think that goes a long way, right? Because I don't have to name matches specifically because most of them generally are just a traditional standard singles match, but there are always going to be those that kind of stand out in the minds of people when you think about like, oh, what was your favorite match growing up, or what's the one thing that really got you into wrestling? And people always say like a specific match, like, and most of the time it's a one-on-one contest, right? So a lot of times people reference like Steamboat Savage, or they reference Hogan slamming Andre or whatever, and those were all just regular singles matches, right? There was no gimmick to it. And I think that's kind of the beauty of just a traditional one-on-one match, is that if the 2 people in there are not just good, you know, because you can have some people who are like great and some people who are not good, but if the chemistry is there and they can tell a great story, then, you know, it creates just these memorable moments, you know?
Absolutely agree. Cannot argue with that at all.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, how about some honorable mentions?
All right. Well, I've only got one honorable mention because I was trying to think really hard, like I said, you know, between all these match types, and like, you know, there's a lot of them that just kind of fall in the middle, but I wouldn't like call them too close to favorites and not too close to like just disliking. So I couldn't even give them an honorable mention to that standpoint. But I have only one on my honorable mention list.
All right.
Do you want me to go ahead and tell you?
Go right ahead.
So pretty much just like how I talked about the singles match, my honorable mention goes to tag team matches, just standard tag team matches, because there is an art form to it, and if it's done right, it's done right. And I think about like a team like, well, I guess they're called FTR now, but the Revival, they can do tag team matches wonderfully, right? And it's like following all the like right rules too, you know, the whole like, you know, you hold the ropes and you can only have a certain distance and the 5 count in the ring, and like if you can tell the story with the actual proper rules rather than like the, I don't know, like current products you see a lot of, whether it's AEW or WWE or whatever, like sometimes these like tag matches, the rules kind of just get thrown away for the story of the participants. And I think if you actually get the chance to see a proper tag team match, it's wonderful.
Absolutely. I love hashtag DIY versus FTR. Their trilogy of matches were just phenomenal. And then you can't underscore the incredible, late 80s WWE tag team wrestling, where they had the Heart Foundation, the Legion of Doom, Demolition, Rockers, etc.
Oh my god, everybody was a tag team. I mean, like that's the thing. It was actually an attraction, rather than right now where it's just always like 2 random guys put together without a tag team name. But like back then, like growing up, like you were always about the tag teams.
Oh, absolutely, and they were incredible. They absolutely took your imagination and ran with it.
Yeah.
And the number of times I just gasped at the Doomsday device.
Yeah.
That was insane back then in the 80s. Nowadays, they're doing even crazier stuff. Just look at the Bucks matches.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, so my honorable mentions. It's a little bit longer than yours. I have 4 of them.
Oh, wow, okay.
One of them is actually the tag team match.
Oh, cool.
And for me, it's just a 2 versus 2. I cannot stand it when it goes beyond. Like I can tolerate 3 versus 3, but then once you get to the 4 versus 4, 5 versus 5, it just does not work for me after that.
No, and you know the only time that 5-5 works is when it's like the Survivor Series, traditional Survivor Series rules of it, right? Because it was meant for just like once a year.
We'll make a caveat for that. That is a good point.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of whenever they tried to shove 10 divas into a match.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
And then, all right, so another one, your basic ladder match. We've already touched on that.
Yep.
2 out of 3 falls.
Okay.
NXT absolutely made me love those kind of matches. One of my favorite ones is New Japan's Kazuchika Okada versus Kenny Omega. And I just feel like 2 out of 3 falls just kind of feels like a good bookend for a rivalry.
Sure.
Where it doesn't need to go into like the no DQ or any other kind of super gimmick. 2 out of 3 falls is just enough to make me like it without having to add a third person.
Yeah.
And then my last honorable mention, pre-recorded matches. And I'm talking about the kinds in the vein of like the Firefly Funhouse, the Final Deletion, I don't really want to count the New Day versus the Wyatt family, but the one where it was Undertaker versus AJ Styles. They don't feel like real wrestling matches. Yeah, they kind of throw reality out the window.
Mhm.
but I just enjoy the creativity. Like
Yeah.
every once in a while, I would enjoy just something just out of left field.
Sure.
And honestly, I know they have their critics, but I I enjoy it. They're nice palate cleansers. A nice little break from reality.
Sure. And I think what do they call them now? They call them cinematic matches. Is that what they call them?
I guess, yeah. I guess that's
Or
the proper
something
term.
like that. I can't remember the actual phrasing, but I think it's something like that, where it's like more like a movie match. And I think you're right, and especially when you talk about um, whether it's not due to the lack of athleticism, because by all means, like Cena versus Bray Wyatt, that could have been an actual match, but they had to tell a story, right? And it involved like the past and all that stuff, so that you had the old gimmicks of Cena and all that stuff. So they had to do it for that purpose, right? But I think of somebody like Undertaker, who obviously was great, and well deserved to be in the Hall of Fame this year. But at this point in time, like his body just doesn't hold up as much as it used to, and so to put him in the match with AJ Styles in the ring, like AJ would run in circles around him, and
Definitely.
it's not fair to either guy to make Undertaker look that bad. So to do it in a cinematic way, I think is wonderful, because you still have the like mystique, and he can still do the spots that he needs to do. And I think somebody like, if they're going to bring part timers, not just for WWE but like AEW and whatnot, and you talk about people who are a little bit up there in age, I think a cinematic match works really well. And I think a guy like Sting could really benefit from that. And I think it's one of those dream matches everybody has always hoped for, but never ever is going to happen now, or ever, is the Sting Undertaker series, right? Like people have always wanted, oh, what if these two guys hooked up in the ring? But it just never happened, because they're in different promotions, whether it was WCW or TNA or wherever Sting was, right? It just never got to happen. And when Sting did make his appearance in the WWE, at that time, I think Undertaker had already started to just work one match a year anyway.
Yep.
And so it was just never going to be able to come to fruition. But those two, if they were in the same company, could probably put on a great cinematic match.
Absolutely. And you say he can't wrestle, but I've seen a couple of his AEW matches recently, and he can still do one or two great spots as long as he's tag teaming with Darby Allin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? And I think that's part of the wise choice by him, is to be part of a team rather than try to do solo work.
Yep. All right. So that's the honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'll do my number one.
Can I just say that for some reason I feel like we're going to have the same number one?
Nope, it actually is not, because your number two, I thought I was being all clever with my number one, but no, you said it as number two. None. I just want a regular 1-versus-1 match.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Keep it simple. As long as it's two great or even good wrestlers, there's no need for anything extra.
Sure.
Like, I don't need no DQ. I don't need false count anywhere. Two wrestlers wrestling. That's all I need. Mm-hmm. And you stole my thunder.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I didn't think that you would go that route, but I should have, considering we were basically almost on par with everything.
Yes. So what is your number one?
So my number one is the Royal Rumble itself.
Oh.
That's my favorite. Like, I mean, I know it's like, it can be very rushed sometimes, and a lot of times of those 30 participants, like 20 of them are only in there for less than 2 minutes, but they always create good moments. And it's just always, I don't know, I have a special place in my heart for that, because I always appreciated the whole like counting down from 10 and then, oh, who's next, that kind of thing. And I've always loved the surprise entrance, or people who return from injury, or sometimes they have like, especially nowadays, they always have some sort of nostalgia come back for it, which isn't as surprising anymore, especially when they decide they want to announce who's all coming via social media. Whereas I'd rather them not tell me who's going to be there. But it's always just one of those things that I look forward to every year, is the match itself. Now, granted, this year's wasn't as great, especially because the way they had the winners. I mean, look, nothing against Ronda and Brock, but like,
it's telegraphed.
it's telegraphed, and like they don't need to win it. Like I want people to win it who actually need to win it, right? Like you talk about with the Money in the Bank contract, right? That should go to somebody who like normally wouldn't get title matches, but because of it, they become world champion, like a Dolph Ziggler or Jack Swagger, I guess.
CM Punk.
People who need that boost should win that match. But I don't need to see Brock Lesnar win it because he's always going to be in the title picture. It just doesn't matter. Like I will never need to see Roman Reigns win that ever, or Seth Rollins, because they will always be there. But if one year Cesaro wins, okay, like I'm behind that. Xavier Woods wins it out of nowhere, sure, that kind of thing. Naomi wins it, great, that's fine. Like I have no problem with that. But like I don't need to see like a Charlotte Flair or a Ronda Rousey or anybody who's a big name win it, because I know they can always be in that picture.
Yep. So I was considering the Royal Rumble, but then it just kept getting knocked down further and further down my list because I keep thinking, oh man, the Royal Rumble sucked. Oh man, the Royal Rumble from 2-3 years ago sucked. And before that it sucked. Before that it sucked. And it just tainted my mind. Like
Sure.
They can have a great Royal Rumble, but it's just been almost like painful to watch ever since whichever one was CM Punk's last one.
Oh, okay, yeah. 2014.
Yeah. From then on, they maybe had 2 really good Rumbles.
Sure.
So like 2 out of the last 8.
Yeah.
That's not a good percentage for me.
No.
If it's done right, it could be great.
Sure. I think if it's done right, and if it's done right, if the story is told right, and it's the right winner, I think that goes a long way. And I know you talked about like in the last 8 years, maybe only 2 of them were really good. I would have to say the ones I really enjoyed in recent memory, I think it was 2018. It was the year they first did the Women's Rumble. It was 18, I think. But it was the year that Shinsuke and Asuka won, right?
Yep, that was a good
And I
year.
really liked that because like near the end of the men's one, I mean, you kind of almost had a story told there, right? Because you had was it Cena, Orton, Mysterio, and then it was like Balor, Shinsuke, and Roman, I think, with the last 6 guys in, and they were kind of like standing off as like the new guard versus the old guard kind of thing, and then eventually wound up being Shinsuke winning it. But it was always like the reason I like that so much is the way they kind of structured the eliminations to really get you behind Shinsuke winning it, right? Because I think he was left with Roman and Cena with the last 2 with him. And of course, at that point, everybody's like, oh no, hell no, we don't want Roman or Cena, right? So you really get the push for Shinsuke, right? And the same thing happened, I think, with the women's one, because I think it ended up being like Asuka and Nikki Bella, and everybody was like, oh no, not a Bella to win this.
Yeah.
So
Shame
like
that neither of them won their WrestleMania matches.
Yeah. It is a shame. I mean, that's the thing, is they had Asuka lose her streak to Charlotte, and Shinsuke fought AJ, and AJ won that one.
Yep. Yeah. Great format. Could be fun. WWE has been dropping the ball too much on that, though.
Yeah, at least they stopped doing that greatest Rumble in the world universe in the history of all Rumble matches at Saudi. At least they stopped doing that.
Yeah. Like when I don't know if you've ever heard of MLW's Battle Riot.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a Royal Rumble-esque kind of match. It's not great. It's almost it's hard to watch because of how small the ring is.
Mm-hmm.
But consistently better than what the WWE has been able to put out.
Yeah. Well, at least they don't do something like what the old TNA used to do and just take the opposite of that match.
Oh god, that was horrible.
And do it in reverse.
No sense. Made no sense at all.
Mm-hmm. 30 men start, and then the last one to leave the ring is the winner.
Yeah, it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
So that was our favorite match stipulations.
Mm-hmm.
You want to try for our least favorite? Our most heated?
Sure.
All right. So I have a feeling because there are so many bad ones out there.
Yeah.
We're not going to have as many matches or as many similar choices as we did on the favorites.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that you and I have very similar favorites.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because you think about what we both had singles, we both had Iron Man, we both had Elimination Chamber,
a variation of the ladder match.
We both had a variation of the ladder match. Yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, cool. All right. So let's start with the most hated, and I guess I'll start.
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. So it's tough, right, for me to pick amongst these 5 because they all have something unlikable about it. But I guess of these 5, the least unlikable, I'm gonna say number 5 is Hell in a Cell.
Oh, controversial in my head.
All right, so the reason, you know what, and the reason I don't like it so much, I mean, like, it used to be so great, and again, it becomes a spot fest in a sense because everybody's trying to top the last time somebody was thrown off the top or thrown through the top or whatever, right? And it becomes not as entertaining because, like, you want there, we talked about with the singles matches, you want there to be a story, you want there to be drama, but you don't want it to be just like, oh, let's see who can do the next cool thing, right? Like, I don't need Shane McMahon jumping off the cell, right? I just don't need that.
Yeah.
I think the last time there was a good cell match was, I believe it was like the New Day versus the Usos in a tag team Hell in a Cell, which was actually a pretty good Hell in a Cell.
Was that the one where they put like random weapons everywhere too?
They did, and then I think they trapped one of the Usos like in the corner with kendo sticks. Yeah. Or was it Woods that got trapped there? I can't remember. They trapped somebody there, but yeah, that was the last good one. But the reason I just don't like it is because it's like, I think ever since Taker threw Foley off the top, everybody feels like they have to do something to outdo that to make the cell match memorable, where it's like, you don't really have to do that. You just have to make it a good story to make it memorable.
Yep, absolutely. And then they did that one where it was, I don't even remember the event, where they had 6 men in it, and it ended with like Rikishi getting thrown off into a truck.
The Armageddon 6-man Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, that was okay. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that was still in the early days of Hell in a Cell. It was like 2000, but now we're 20 years down the line, and they try to do a Hell in a Cell like 2-3 times a year, and they created an event called Hell in a Cell where there's like 3 cell matches in the same night.
Yep. And
then they painted the cell red. You know, it's just, and then the other thing too was like, I think, what was it? Was it Ambrose versus Wyatt or Rollins versus Wyatt?
No,
that one ended in a no DQ, or it ended in a DQ, and it's like, how could it end in a DQ? It's a cell match.
Rollins and the Fiend.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
There was that one, and then there was another one with Wyatt and Ambrose, and there was like a hologram.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was Ambrose and Rollins, and it was a hologram of Wyatt.
Oh God, yeah. See, and that's the thing, is like they ruined it with those things.
And then they try to add other things on top of it, and like Al Snow and Big Boss Man's dog kennel match.
Yeah.
Make it more vicious, but the dogs were just all obedient little huggable dogs. It was terrible. Absolutely. Yeah, I get it now. You made a good point. It could be good. Okay. They just don't do it good.
That's right.
All right. So my number 5. I don't know if you're going to be, if you consider this controversial or not, because you may love these matches.
Mm-hmm.
Bra and panty.
I forgot that was even a stipulation.
Hated those. Loved it as a teenager. Hate them now. Because I want my women to actually wrestle.
Yeah.
I don't want them to come out in evening gowns and see who can strip the other one first.
Mm-hmm.
It feels backwards now. It feels like all of the things that the 4 horsewomen have accomplished, all the things that the women in Stardom, in the Japanese Joshi promotions, in Shimmer and Shine.
Mm-hmm.
If the WWE ever does a bra and panty match again, I will absolutely never watch them again.
Well, I mean, I don't think they can nowadays. I mean, like times have changed so much, and I think that's the thing, exactly what you said. I mean, back then it was like attitude era and everybody was trying to do something like controversial and like sexy and all that stuff. But you're right. And it's also, they didn't give the women enough credit to be athletes, right? So you had them come out and do that. And
Yep.
that's the thing, like it was like 2 or 3 minutes long and there was no actual like fighting involved. It was just trying to chase each other.
Yep. And it's like the only way the Cat or Tori Wilson could have become champions.
Yeah.
Just to mask the fact that those women, they may be athletes, they may be athletic, but they couldn't wrestle.
No. Yeah. No, I think that's a good pick. I totally forgot that was even a thing.
They were fun on Nintendo 64's No Mercy.
Yeah, but that was also really weird. It was.
It was. They were not realistic looking at all. The women wrestlers there.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but the fact that you like video gamed it. Like
Yeah.
they didn't need to be.
But they did. And we have it. We played it.
Yep.
All right. So what's your number 4?
All right. So my number 4, again, it's a hard thing to come up with in terms of putting it together, but I guess my number 4 will have to be, oh god, I'm gonna say Falls Count Anywhere.
Okay.
Because I don't know, it's not that I'm not a fan of the hardcore wrestling style, the old ECW stuff, but at the same time, it's like it takes away a lot of the elements of why, and not to knock anybody, but like it just makes it feel like, well, anybody can do this. You just like run around, grab a chair and beat somebody up with it, right? But there's no like actual athleticism to it, I guess.
Mhm.
And not to say like it doesn't take an athlete to get hit with a chair. I'm not trying to say that, or hit somebody hard with it. But like there's not a lot of drama built into it, right? It's just like Falls Count Anywhere. Okay, cool. So in the ring, outside the ring. Oh, we're gonna walk up the ramp. Oh, we're gonna go through the crowd, and then we're gonna go to the locker room, and we're gonna go through the hallways, and sometimes we can make it all the way to the garage, and then you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take a forklift and drop a pallet on somebody and consider that a pinfall. It's like, well, okay, I guess that's how you win matches.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I understand. I feel bad for the people who paid a ticket to watch that.
that,
Now
that
I have
too,
to watch
right?
this on the screen.
That too, like you pay for like 2 guys to do a marquee matchup, and then they end up like rolling all the way around the building, and you don't get to see them, and you like are looking at the Titantron or whatever as just like an audience member at home would be doing, except the audience member at home probably has a better view because watching it on your television, at least the camera's right there, and if you're watching it on the monitor like at the arena, like how good of a view are you getting, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't have much to say about that one, but it was, it's on my list as one that I just don't really enjoy.
I understand. That definitely makes sense. Like, yeah, I totally agree with you there. The Falls Count Anywhere sucks, but thankfully not on my list. So my number 4, and it's just because I touched on this in my favorites list. It's the 30-minute Iron Man match.
Oh, okay.
Just because it just feels insulting to me that you call a 30-minute match an Iron Man match. It is not like, yes, some wrestlers, some performers, 30 minutes is a lot. To a lot of other performers, 30 minutes is what they do every day.
Sure.
It just does not jive in my head.
Yeah.
So with that, I think I'm just going to jump straight to my number 3.
Okay.
And number 3 is beat the clock. How insulting is it that if you are the opponent for the person that needs to beat the clock?
Yeah.
Like, way to bury some extra people in a rivalry.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Short matches, I just hate them.
Yeah, I forgot that was a thing too. I mean, like, when I was trying to think about gimmick matches I really didn't like, I forgot that was a thing. But you're right, it really is very insulting, right? Because, and usually, like, there isn't really any stipulation other than, oh, whoever beats it becomes the number one contender, right? Well, why not just put everybody in the same match and whoever wins is the contender, right? Like, what's the point of having, like the Undertaker versus, El Torito, right? Or, I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm just making it up. But like, oh, okay, that's easily going to be like a 2 minute or like 30-second squash, right? And
Yep.
then like the next person that comes out, like it has to be like Rey Mysterio versus Chris Jericho. It's like, well, that's not fair, right? Because you got two talented guys right there, and then somebody else got like an easy squash, right? But you're right. It also is like very insulting to the person who gets squashed, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's just not even a nameless jobber. Sometimes it's like, it's Dana Brooke. It's I don't know, some random wrestling guy on WWE. I don't even care anymore because they're just gonna get buried in my head.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's super insulting, and I think if I were them, I would get rid of that altogether.
Yep. All right. So, what's your number 3?
All right, so my number 3 is the tables match.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Why the tables match?
Because there's no drama to it. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, for me, like, it's like, okay, so the drama of it all is somebody gets put through a table, right? And it's not like in the video games where, like, and you can probably remember this when we played these video game table matches. You're like, oh, cool. All right, I'm gonna set this table up. I'm gonna powerbomb a guy through it. It's like, oh, well, they weren't weak enough. Like, their stamina wasn't low enough for you to powerbomb them through the table. Even though you did it, the table didn't like break, so you didn't win, right?
Yep.
But like in actual life, in real life, like if you had like, I don't know, Roman Reigns versus Goldberg in a tables match, like the first one to spear somebody through a table or powerbomb somebody through a table, it's over, right? But there's no drama to it, right? Other than like, oh, I'm gonna powerbomb him. Oh no, I get reversed into a sunset flip. Oh, right. But then I don't know. It just it's not enjoyable to me. I appreciate it when it's like part of a thing, like a TLC, right?
Mhm.
Because the end goal isn't to put somebody through a table; it's to climb the ladder and get the belt or get the briefcase or get whatever is up there, right? But the table is there as a utilization of incapacitating the person, so I have a chance to climb a ladder, and that maybe I can get there, and then the drama is built that way, right? But a tables match is just like, oh, put them through the table and it's over.
I get it. You make a good point, but
Mhm.
I have enjoyed tables matches in the past. And when you bring up video games, I remember when I try to powerbomb someone and I'm not lined up perfectly and I just end up powerbombing them on the floor and they just miss the table. Oh, good Lord, that just pissed me off so much.
Yeah.
In the old
Or you
PlayStation
did it and you're like, oh no, I totally got the corner. I totally got the corner of the table.
And in those old PlayStation games, I think it was like impossible to keep them on the table if you want to like
Yeah.
roll them onto it so you can jump through it.
Yeah.
Bad memories.
Yep.
All right. So, what is your number 2?
All right. So I think for the same reason, I have my number 3 there. My number 2 is here, and it's the submission match.
Oh,
And so, like I talked about with the tables match, it's a lack of drama to me. Because like when you get somebody in submission, all it is like, oh, I'm holding on submission. Oh, are they gonna tap? Oh, they're not gonna tap. Oh, are they gonna tap? Oh, they're gonna escape, right? But like without the 1, 2, oh, like kick out of an actual like regular one-on-one contest, there's no drama built in, right? That doesn't feel to me like there's as much drama as there is when there's just a submission match. I think I've read a couple of interviews before where I can't remember who said it, but they were saying like how they hate participating in them. Was it Kurt Angle maybe? Or no, I can't remember. They said they hate participating in it because there isn't as much drama to it. And I agree, right? I agree. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me why that should be a sole stipulation. Like, there should be multiple stipulations to match it. Submission, pinfall, count out, whatever it is. When it's just submission, there's no drama. And I just feel like I lose interest in it.
I can kind of agree with you there. I think there were some good submission matches in the past
Mm-hmm.
But I did not like it when they would put a submission wrestler with one who's never had a submission victory before, and then you end up getting something like John Cena creating the STFU.
Sure.
And that just, but if it was something like Bret Hart versus someone else who had or Chris Benoit, or Chris Jericho versus maybe even a ringmaster, Steve Austin, back when he used the $1 Million Dream. If you have two submission wrestlers, that could be entertaining to watch. But if you have someone like John Cena versus Kurt Angle, it just doesn't work in my head. Like, John Cena should never win this match.
Yeah, but then he does. And then you're like, well, that's stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah. I get your point there. I get your point. So for my number 2, it's the Battle Royal. Not the Royal Rumble, but the one where they start with all of the men in a ring. It's lazy, it's chaotic, it's sloppy. The winner rarely feels like they actually earned it, and it's more like luck.
Yeah.
It was like and even the WWE doesn't treat it all that great. Oh, the winner of this Battle Royal gets to be the number 1 contender, and we just threw all these random guys in the ring. Or, Cesaro won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and then they do jack crap with him.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I mean, and it's also, like you said, it's very chaotic. And when they start with everybody in the ring, they usually just put everybody there. You don't even know who's really in it until people start getting thrown out. You're like, oh, that person was in it? Okay, cool.
Like, and then good memory I've ever had of a Battle Royal was back when Kurt Axel was still doing his Axelmania. He was like the last person to come in. He just started like doing his whole hulking up, slapping everyone and pushing everyone before the match even started, and he was the first one eliminated.
Sure.
It was that's the only fun memory I've ever had of a Battle Royal. Everything after that, hated it. I can understand back then in the old days when Andre the Giant would be traveling territories, or Haystacks, Calhoun, the big guys, the attraction guys, you wanted them in a match, but you didn't actually want them in a match. You just threw them in a Battle Royal and have them win the Battle Royal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2 things about that. Like, one, you talk about the Battle Royal and how it's not really a lot of fun, but even for the competitors, because I remember one instance where I think it was a women's Battle Royal and Gail Kim just eliminated herself. Like, she didn't want to be part of it. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
She wasn't supposed to win it, and so she thought, like, well, what's the point? And she just like rolled out of the ring and just never came back.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, like, clearly they don't enjoy it either. And then the whole thing with the big guys, right? It's like, have you ever noticed whether it's with a Battle Royal or a Royal Rumble, when it's a big guy, like, everyone's like, oh, how are they going to throw that person over the top? And you notice how a big guy never actually wins a Royal Rumble?
Yeah.
Like, has the Big Show ever won one? Nope.
Undertaker did.
The Undertaker did, right? Sure. Yeah. But Kane? No. Viscera? Nope.
Did Big John Studd win like one of the first 2?
I think he might have. I know Hacksaw won the first one in '88. I think maybe Studd won it in '89.
Yeah. I guess you can't really count Hulk Hogan as a big guy, even though he is larger than we are.
He is, but then at that time he was dealing with guys that were like, Sid Vicious and Yokozuna and
I guess Yokozuna won one.
Yeah.
That crazy one where Macho Man tried to pin him at the end, and then Yokozuna.
Oh yeah. That one I just didn't understand at all. I remember watching that and I was like, what? It, like, just makes him look so bad. It makes him look so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing if it's meant to be. Yeah, that's true. It's one thing if it's meant to be a joke, though. Like that one Rumble where R-Truth went through this whole like phase of like he didn't get it. He was like a little bit dumb, and so R-Truth ran down because he was like the next person in for the Rumble, and he like slides under the ring, grabs the ladder, throws it into the ring, starts climbing the ladder, and reaches up and like it's like, where's the briefcase? And everybody's like, what is happening? That's the only time where it's like, the guy clearly chose to make fun of himself, and that's okay.
Yeah. Like, I'll give bonus points to R-Truth for being a little entertaining on those things, but yeah, the overall battle royals, not that good. Royal Rumbles do give themselves a little bit more room for creativity,
Mm-hmm.
but battle royals are just such a mess that it's just, it's bathroom break material for me.
Yeah, I get it.
But enough about burying battle royals. I have quite the list of honorable mentions here.
Oh, wow. I have only one.
So you must love wrestling more than I do.
Well, I don't know if I love it more than you do. Maybe it was just harder for me to think about all the various stipulations because I guess I didn't specify as many as maybe you did because you broke it down between like 60-minute and 30-minute and Money in the Bank versus non-Money in the Bank and that kind of thing. So maybe you actually thought about it a lot more than I did. But yeah, I think if you go through your list, I'll probably either agree or disagree on a lot of these.
So the first one on my honorable mention is the holiday-themed match. Whether it's Christmas or
Thanksgiving,
Halloween or Thanksgiving, no thank you.
Yep.
Zombie lumberjacks, no thank you on Halloween. I do not like the I Quit matches. It does not make sense for you to have to shove a microphone in someone's face until they scream I quit. Texas bull rope or dog collar matches. Mainly because it still stings, even though it's been 15 years, watching JBL beat Eddie Guerrero on a technicality like that, touching all the corners.
Yep.
I do not like single elimination tournaments like the King of the Ring. When I was younger, I thought they were awesome. Now that I've watched them as an adult, 3 5-minute matches, it was just like, oh, these guys aren't really putting 100% into every match. They're just saving it until the finals. These matches actually stink.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And then my last one, 24/7.
Oh,
hate it.
Well.
Ever since Crash Holly did it, I hated it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see people get pinned in a hotel room. I don't want to see people get pinned on an airplane. I don't want to see people get pinned while they're trying to take a dump on the toilet. I don't know what else they've done, but I hated it. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, that's all meant for comic relief, and I agree with you 100% on that. Like, it made no sense because just like you talked about with the beat the clock, it really disrespects the people who are involved in it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, as athletes, as people who are supposed to be professionals, and then like you said, they're like, get rolled up like at the airport, or like was it Crash Holly was champion at the time, and then like he was getting like a massage or something, and then Ivory came in and hit him with like a jar of something and pinned him.
I can't remember the exact ones, but yeah, it's probably happened.
Yeah.
And then it's just insane. It's just nobody can kick out once they get pinned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you think about it right now, like with their current 24/7 version, right? Dana Brooke is the holder, but then like they're at this point where nobody wants to actually take it from her.
Yeah.
Because I guess now they feel like they can't have intergender promotional contests because that's not good.
Yeah. Either way, like, yeah, there was that fun period where R-Truth was the 24/7 champion. Ugly belt, by the way. Can't rag on that design enough.
Yeah.
But it got old.
Yeah, I mean, that design is terrible. The strap is green. Might as well have just made it a clock, just turn it into a clock.
There are only so many times you can see R-Truth just running away from a group of people.
Yeah. But, at the same time, I think what is he, like a 53-time 24/7 champion?
Oh, that's nothing. I don't give a damn about how many times you won the champion if you only held it for like a minute, or you lost it in a minute and then won it back.
Well, I mean,
those inflated numbers.
No, exactly. I mean, they're very inflated numbers. I mean, I think that's why. Oh, who is it? Raven? Isn't Raven like a 21-time hardcore champion or something like that?
Yeah, and like Rob Gronkowski is a 1-time champion. No, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I get it.
That's
I get
me
it.
venting. All right. What are your honorable mentions?
Well, I only have one that I could really think of, and I hope you agree with me on this. Like it's not, I don't know how, it's not really a stipulation, but the type is what I would like to call the adversaries teaming up to see if they can coexist tag team match.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a stipulation, but I get it. I understand what you're saying.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
they do it all the time. They do it whenever they can get the chance, right? Like, oh, it's gonna be, you know, let's say it's Charlotte versus Ronda at Mania, but this week they both don't like, you know, Sonya Deville and whoever, Natty, right? So
Mhm.
this week it's gonna be Natty and Sonya Deville versus Ronda and Charlotte. Oh, let's see if they can get along. And of course, what happens during the match? Oh, somebody doesn't want to get tagged in, or oh, during the match they tag and whatever, and then after the match somebody gets beaten down, right? It's like, you know what's going to happen. Like,
Yep.
clearly they're not going to get along, right? So what's the point of putting them together? And there's no shock value in like them winning the tag team titles, right? They did that with what, Cena and Shawn Michaels. They've done it with who? What, Undertaker and Austin? I don't know how, Shawn Michaels and Austin, whoever. They've done it like so many times where like the people who aren't supposed to be friends, they're not supposed to be like partners, are tag team champions all of a sudden, but then they lose like the next night or whatever.
Yep. And it's very insulting to the former champions. You have
It
to
is.
lose against a team that have zero quote unquote chemistry because they hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. Don't know if I'd call it a stipulation, but I understand it. I understand where you're coming from with that one.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, I don't know if you can call it stipulation, but it's a thing that you see all the time.
Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even did they do it a lot during the Teddy Long era? He did tag team matches. I don't know if he did the adversaries.
I can't think of that, but I just know that you're either with Teddy Long, you're either in a tag team match or you're going one-on-one with the Undertaker. Play out.
Yeah. All right. What's your
All right.
number one most hated match?
I don't know if you and I are gonna have the same one on this one, but because we haven't matched at all on the hated ones. But my number one most hated match is the Punjabi prison match.
Oh,
Because you can't see anything that's happening. That was my
That's
biggest
true.
gripe about it when they first introduced it, right? They first introduced it when, you know, they tried to like push Kali on everybody or whatever. And it's like, okay, so it's bamboo around a ring, but then there's a second layer of bamboo around the ring. But then how do you see anything? Like,
those
even
things
if,
are too thick.
right, like even like the at home people, like there are only certain angles you could get, and unless the cameraman was actually in the ring, you could see it. But like, think about if you were an audience member who went to attend this event, and the main event was like, you know, Batista versus the Great Khali in a Punjabi prison match. And you're like, okay, interesting, I guess. But then you couldn't see into it. Like,
And I do understand because the Punjabi prison match usually means the Great Khali's in it,
right.
which is a negative
Except
in
for the
itself.
except for the very first one where he actually wasn't in it because he couldn't be in it because he got, like, I think he got hurt or something happened, and so they replaced him with the Big Show. I think so. I do genuinely think this is actually true. Like the first Punjabi prison match, I think isn't like Big Show versus Batista or Big Show versus Undertaker or something like that, where Khali's not even in it.
I can't remember that, but if it's true, it probably did happen.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised with Khali and his injury history.
But yeah, I mean, like you couldn't see into it. I really didn't get it. So were you supposed to escape both walls? But then how do you escape?
Who the hell knows with that match?
Right. So I never understood it. I didn't get it. And that's why it's my most hated, because it just made no sense to me. Like, it's one thing to give a specific performer their own like gimmick, right? So like, you know, like casket matches, of course that's going to be an Undertaker thing, right? Or Inferno matches should be a Kane thing, right? But Punjabi prison match, like, what?
Yep, I totally understand that. Like, and the one thing that kept me from adding any of those matches that you mentioned, the casket, the Inferno, the Punjabi Prison, was because it was tied to a single wrestler. I couldn't quite get myself to add those to my list. I have yet to like any of those and the Buried Alive matches.
Mhm.
But if I had a list of the top 20, yeah, they'd definitely be on there.
Oh yeah.
But,
Oh, that made me even think of the what was it, stretcher matches or ambulance matches. Man, those should have been honorable mentions for sure.
oh god, yeah. But yeah, so for my number one,
Mhm.
pole matches. Anything on a pole.
Wow, I mentioned that too.
Whether it was flags or mystery boxes, Viagra, someone's mother. No.
Yep. Yeah.
WCW absolutely ruined it. And to be honest,
Mhm.
the flag matches felt slightly xenophobic.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, here's this US guy going against some foreigner. Who's going to win this one? Oh, it's likely the USA guy, unless it's Rusev. I think Rusev may have won the flag
Sure.
match, but it doesn't work for me anymore.
No.
Like, it may have worked in the 80s, maybe the early 90s. Definitely didn't work in the early 2000s or the pre-2000s.
Mhm.
And just stay away from it. I don't want it. Keep it
Yeah.
away from me. I don't want to see guys climb the turnbuckle and stretch and reach for something on a pole in the corner. It doesn't work for me. It's not dramatic. It's not a ladder. It's not. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Now, what if the flags were? What if it was a flag match, but it was a ladder flag match?
Oh no. No. If it was, I can understand if it was like, if they did something like Impact did with Team USA versus Team Canada, and it was on a ladder match, but they didn't reach for a flag. They reached for like a briefcase or a clipboard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it doesn't need to be a flag. It could just be a random object. It could be a brass ring for all I care.
Didn't they not just recently, but like a few years ago, didn't they do something similar to that whole like Judy Bagwell on a pole match with
Yeah, they
Enzo
did.
in a shark cage?
I don't remember if it was a shark cage, but she was definitely on top of a forklift.
She was, but I mean, like the WWE didn't they do that with like Big Cass and Enzo? Wasn't Enzo in a shark cage?
Oh god,
Do you remember this?
it feels familiar. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it feels just dumb enough that WWE would be doing it nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy.
Bad memories.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's your? Oh wait, we already did yours. The Punjabi prison match.
Mm-hmm.
It was so bad I wiped it from my memory already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, those were our favorite matches and our least favorite matches.
And I would probably say, I mean, aside from a couple of mine that may, like you said, maybe be controversial, I don't think any of ours would have made anybody's top list.
I don't know. There's some diehard Hell in the Cellars out there.
True. I mean, like I said, aside from that, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I can't see many people wanting to see any of the other matches that we listed.
Unless you really, really want bra and panties to come back.
Which, if you do, I feel sorry for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I may join you in watching it. I'll watch it, but I'm not going to like what I'm watching.
Well, yeah.
That's just the inner pig in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
My inner Jerry Lawler. I'll say that much.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And that's our list. Let us know in the comments below what your favorite or most hated match types are, or if you absolutely disagree with any of our picks. If you like this kind of content, please feel free to like, share, or subscribe. I'm Chia Ng, he's Ben Lee. Thank you, and you're welcome.